This train has a bed.
This train has a dining car.
This train has a shower.
This might be one of the nicest trains I've ever been on. Well, except for a couple things. For starters, what it actually took to get here. I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, turns out the only way of getting a train from Nashville to Philadelphia involves driving for 4 hours through all of Tennessee. That aside, behind me is Peachtree Station, and on the train platform is Amtrak's Crescent train. This train service runs all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana, up to NYC. My name is Edinger, and after living over 13 years in the UK, I've experienced countless trains going across countries, including a recent awful experience going from London to Berlin with Deutsche Bahn.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, God. This is not good.
So that got me thinking, what if I booked one of Amtrak's fanciest offerings on this train? Can one of America's best trains beat one of Europe's worst? Let's find out. My journey to Peachtree Station in Atlanta started like most all journeys in the USA, in a car. I was shooting some content at a Reliant K concert in Nashville and found the nearest train going to Philly was a good 400 kilometers away in Atlanta, so I had to drive.
This 5 minutes between places.
Luckily, Atlanta's public transit system isn't all that bad. So I managed to get from the airport, where I dropped my car off, right to the Amtrak station using one of the local trains and a local bus.
Oh my God, this is so sick. We're boarding the train.
The Amtrak train I'd booked for today was an overnight sleeper train
There we go. Very good.
that didn't depart from Atlanta until 11:30 p.m.
Room number 4.
Thank you very much.
So, after a pretty seamless boarding process, I had found my way to my cute little roomette.
Number 4. That's me.
It was dark, and I was pretty tired, but I was so incredibly excited for my upcoming journey that I spent a significant amount of time messing around with all the lights.
Little party. Let's see what this one do.
Oh. Before turning into bed, I found this little information booklet about the train quite a bit funny.
It's the American version of See It, Say It, Sorted. If you see something suspicious or unusual, just say something. You don't have to see it, say it, or sorted.
And I know you're dying to know what this button does. Well, so am I. A full roomette tour is definitely needed. Maybe in the morning, once everyone else wakes up. It was time I turn off the lights and let the comforting rocking of the train back and forth lull me off to sleep. The morning came bright and early, and I'm not gonna lie, waking up on this train and seeing the scenery pass by in the window was nothing short of magical in a way I never expected. But another thing I never expected was the drink that came with my breakfast.
So after a bit of a shaky six-hour journey, we've made it to North Carolina. I'm a little bit sleepy. It felt like I was sleeping in the back of a pickup truck, but I've now been delivered breakfast in bed, so of course everyone's favorite American breakfast. I didn't order that. Aha, this here is my order of bourbon apple crepes. When you get a roomette, this little room here, you do get free meals, drinks, non-alcoholic, of course. And this is like a TV show you can just watch all day. It's very nice.
Yeah, honestly, the breakfast wasn't too bad, but despite the fact that this roomette is billed as the more luxury way to travel, I was a bit surprised that unlike even on some of the cheapest trains I've been on in Europe, this train's only coffee option was the standard giant tub of burnt-tasting American coffee, with half and half, of course. I actually asked what coffees they had on offer, and the guy looked at me so confused and he went, we have filter coffee, mate. He didn't say mate because he's American. But if you've ever taken this train before, you might be confused as to why mine looks so incredibly old. Like, look at these buttons. They look like they belong at a Soviet nuclear power plant.
3.6.
Not great, not terrible.
Not one of America's supposed nicest trains. This ticket cost me $450, but the buttons look like they came out of a Lego set. Not even Lego. Temu Lego.
On this route from New Orleans to New York City, the Amtrak Crescent actually has two different rolling stock options. One is the Viewliner 1, and the other is the Viewliner 2, the much more updated and more modernly fitted train. Before you book, you have no choice of which one you're going to get. Whichever one arrives at the platform is which one you're on. I'm on the Viewliner 1, so this one is quite a bit outdated, but it has some pros and cons depending on how you view things.
For starters, if I were on the Viewliner 2, I'd get more space, modern fittings, a quieter cabin, and more comfortable seats. But the Viewliner 1 does have one trick up its sleeve.
The one positive or negative, depending on who you are, this step allows you to get up to the second bunk if you have two people in your roomette. Also operates as a toilet. Now, some people might not like the idea of sleeping with their face so close to where they poo, but it does allow you to have a completely private space in order to relieve yourself. The Viewliner 2 might have more modern fittings, but there's no toilet in the room. Woo! So you've actually got to go and use the shared facilities. Also, right here is a fully functioning sink. Isn't that fancy? Yet again, this is not available in the Viewliner 2. All they get is fittings that don't look like they come out of the 50s.
And if you like the design of the cute little dining table in my cabin, well, I've got bad news.
Sadly, they've not provided me with any chess pieces to play against myself. Shada.
Other than that, I found the roomette pretty cozy, all things considered. And though it took a bit more effort, I could manage taking down and lifting up the bunk bed to give myself some extra space throughout the day. But on the other side of my roomette, I might have had some questions.
So we've got our button to push to call the attendant. You can call him in. And then it says, I have no idea. It says room speaker control, but this, you can't actually do anything with this. It's very confusing. It's like one of those like Lego sets you have as a kid. You build some Legos. They're not real buttons. So I don't know what this is. Then we got here a nice little thermostat, that nice like yellowed beige from the 90s. Probably actually older than I am as well. And then everything that is available down here, also available up top if you have someone in your bunk bed. And hey, let's just say you brought your child with you on your trip, you can strap them in here. Otherwise, that is the tour of the facilities. Not so bad.
Despite its ancient fittings, I'd say that this little roomette is one of, if not the nicest spaces I've ever had to journey by train. Doesn't quite beat Emirates business class, but, you know, it also doesn't require you to sell your firstborn to ride. And also, that's a flight. Quite different. So, with my roomette fully explored, it was time I settled into things. I spent some time learning some Spanish, and then researching and scripting some of the points brought up in my video on why Americans don't walk to school anymore, linked above. But don't get your hopes up for any YouTube watching on this train. You may get fast speeds on most all trains in Europe, but the Wi-Fi speed on this Amtrak train was about as fast as the dial-up internet that I grew up with. But I definitely needed whatever internet speeds I could get for later in my journey. But who needs screens when you've got a view like this? After spending some time watching a lot of America pass by the window, I must have lost track of time, because it was already time for the lunch service. That's right, as a pun intended, we said track. I should train my brain. Just like breakfast, you have the option of having your lunch in your roomette, but that would be a huge mistake, because then you'd be missing out on one of the most beautiful parts of this Amtrak train.
This is beautiful. This is so nice. This is nicer than any train I've actually been on in the UK or in Europe. This is wild. Wow. This train has a dining car.
About an hour before lunch, someone came to my roomette to take my order and schedule me a time to come down to the dining carriage, and I'm so glad that I went. I was so bowled over with just how stunning this room was. The double-decker windows with trees and clouds passing by in a fast blur, the warm sun flickering throughout the carriage as the train chugged along, and the quaint table fittings like you're on a first date. For me, it was love at first sight. That is, until the food arrived. One of my favorite foods of all time in London is a good Indian curry, so I wanted to see if Amtrak could give me a little taste of home. My butter chicken curry also came with a little salad, a bread roll, and the most American thing I'd never heard of before this train, a butter cake. Lovely. But despite the nice table settings and how beautiful the carriage was, serving the food in these little paper boxes really cheapened the feel of the whole thing. It felt like I was on a class trip as opposed to a luxury dining experience on a top-of-the-line train in America. But hey, maybe the curry can make up for this.
It's actually not bad. I would argue this kind of tastes very similar to a standard Sainsbury's curry that you get in like the frozen section. It's actually, yeah, basically tastes like a microwave curry, so not bad.
I guess my curiosity got the better of me. And you know what? The butter cake wasn't actually half bad. If I had to rate my meal in terms of just, hey, it was a meal that came with it, the scenery was amazing, everything else, including the food, the carriage itself gets a 10 out of 10. The food itself gets like a 4 out of 10. It's going to even out at a 7 out of 10. And right as I was about to get some work done in my roomette, I noticed the scenery outside my window had changed from the large American landscapes to big apartment buildings and skyscrapers as the train slowed to a stop.
As you can see, we're currently not moving. We're stationary. This isn't the first time this has happened. We had an issue where we had to pull over or just stop to let another train pass by in front of us. But this time, actually, this is a very important stop. Let's go outside and check out what exactly is going on.
I walked around on the platform for a bit to stretch out my legs, and we were told by staff that we could go towards the back of the platform to buy a McDonald's during the break, because of course we were. But I walked in the opposite direction, because that's where things got interesting. It turns out every train that passes along this route has to take a scheduled 30-minute break from your journey to swap out the engine car. You see, up to DC, the trains run on diesel, but from DC to Boston, most of the line is electrified, and the train needs to go through many narrow tunnels where the exhaust from a diesel engine would cause quite a bit of concern. If you're European, you might be confused why trains here would even require this swap at all, as bi-mode trains that can effortlessly switch from using diesel energy to overhead electric energy have been available since the early 2000s. That, and even before the invention of bi-mode trains, European rail would just stick to using one form of energy or the other so as to not cause such a massive delay for passengers. Most US rail lines are privately owned by freight companies, not the US government, and are merely rented by passenger services like Amtrak. And rather than ever investing in modernizing their infrastructure, freight companies always choose instead to pay more money out to their shareholders. Similar to many other aspects of American life, because a vital service is controlled by corporations, it exists to serve the profits of a small number of shareholders over the actual American people. But with that, I decided to board early to have a look at what the economy offerings on this train were. Honestly, these seats look very comfortable by train standards.
At one point during my journey, I noticed we were about 400 miles out from Philadelphia, which is roughly the distance from London to Edinburgh. And I was like, oh, I've done that journey many times. And yet when I looked at the length of time it would take to get to Philadelphia, I was like, oh, that's over 2 times longer. Probably because, there we go, we have to change the engines and such. But still, it also just feels so much slower than it needs to be.
But I suppose that's why this entire journey takes over 17 hours to travel just over 1,200 kilometers, or 768 miles. That works out to an average speed of about 72 kilometers an hour, or 45 miles per hour. That's right, if I had driven my car the speed limit from Atlanta to Philadelphia, even factoring in 6 hours of breaks for food and rest, I'd still manage to beat the train there. And people wonder why Americans don't seem to be taking the train. And this train doesn't even have to pass through any other countries. It's domestic. If it were in the UK, that 17-hour journey would actually take 8.5 hours based on the average speed from London to Edinburgh of 146 kilometers an hour or 91 miles per hour. In France, this journey would take 5 hours and 45 minutes at the average speed from Paris to Marseille being 215 kilometers an hour or 134 miles per hour. But if we compare it to my previous journey from London to Berlin, where I had to cross multiple countries' borders and Deutsche Bahn seemingly lost my train, causing hours and delays, well, then the Amtrak comes out on top, with my journey's average speed being a depressing 53 kilometers an hour, or 33 miles per hour. Interestingly enough, if my trip through England, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany that looked like this hadn't had any delays, it would just about align with the timing of Amtrak's engine swap and all that at 1 kilometer an hour faster. So sure, even the worst of European trains are faster than this American one, and European delays are more quote-unquote unexpected than America's. But this American train still has one thing I've never experienced on any European train.
This train has a shower.
I was quite surprised that even though this train left New Orleans over 17 hours ago, I was the first person to try this shower out, as none of the towels had been used or moved at all. But there might be a reason for that. The fact that I could shower at all on this train was such a luxury. It included your standard 3-in-1 style body wash, and the water pressure and temperature were honestly a-okay. The one thing I maybe didn't consider about showering on a train: the train itself. At one point, the train was really lurching left and right, and thus so was my naked body against the railings and the shower walls.
There's a reason there's a handle in the shower.
But even still, if you do get the chance to shower on the train, I would highly recommend it solely for the experience. And hey, after a whole day of traveling, it's so nice to feel all nice and clean towards the end of your journey. So I quickly dried off and headed back to my room, where I needed to make my final preparations for my end destination. As I sit there, watching the view out the window, thinking about how lovely my journey had been, how much I loved the little bed, the private space, the beautiful dining carriage, and even my recent shower, I started getting the feeling like maybe I was forgetting something. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about today's video sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN is the world's fastest virtual private network, and even with Wi-Fi speeds as slow as I was getting on the Amtrak Crescent, I still managed to use NordVPN to save some money on a rental. UK prices are always better. With the click of a button, I was easily able to change my browsing location to jolly old England so I could get the better rates. And just like my train, my internet traffic was now going through a tunnel, an encrypted tunnel. If you'd like to try out NordVPN, you can do so risk-free, as they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So sign up today at nordvpn.com/Evan, and you can get an amazing offer on a 2-year plan, plus a neat little bonus. So thanks NordVPN for sponsoring. I guess I finally need to get off this train. I managed to get off the train in Philadelphia just in the nick of time to wave the Amtrak Crescent goodbye. Honestly, it was an incredible journey, and I'm sure as hell gonna miss it. I walked down the train carriage and exited left of frame. You see, now I had a much bigger problem. If I wanted to be in Philadelphia, maybe this next part wouldn't be so bad. But Philly is only the closest stop I could get to with the Amtrak. I don't even live in Pennsylvania. To carry on to my journey, I need to walk a further 40 minutes from the railway station to get to the nearest Patco station. And hey, I'm thankful I've got the Patco train here. In fact, it'll take me from central Philadelphia across the Delaware River, and then
It just stops here without any further connections in the most densely populated state in the USA. And guess what's behind me? That's the problem. All we have is cars. Just like the beginning of my journey, I now have to drive. And as nice as the Amtrak Crescent was, with its fancy roomette service and its shower facilities, its lovely viewing carriage and its bed, well, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists as part of a transport network. Or at least it's supposed to be. Sure, Deutsche Bahn might have dropped me off for 5 hours in some random Dutch town I didn't actually want to go to. But at no point during my journey did I have to get a car or do anything like that to get anywhere I needed to go. I walked from my flat 10 minutes, got a train to a connecting train, which internationally took me all the way, sure, with some delays, to Berlin, where I then hopped on a tram to get to my final hotel. At no point did I have to get into a car or do anything like that. No, it was actually the way that a functioning public transport network should be. I do hope my home state of New Jersey, the most densely populated state in the USA, does put more money into building out a better public transport network, because of all the states that would need one, New Jersey's really the one. But at the end of the day, I'm getting a bit hungry now, so I'm gonna go grab a Wawa and maybe a bit of ice cream. Lovely tastes of home. If you haven't seen this video yet, I highly recommend it. It's pretty good, but I'm hungry, so I'm gonna head out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my channel next Sunday. Goodbye.